there, I'm Guildmaster Dan, and welcome to the Fourth Wall. And you may be able to tell by the one what sort of thing we're going to be talking about. Well, it's been a while since I've done a Fourth Wall episode due to work, back to school, and going on vacation. But, I recently picked up my copy of 5th edition and was reading about what they were talking about with magic. And it got me to thinking about how, when you're making a campaign setting, how magic should be treated in the whole level of magic thing. So today, I thought we would go ahead and talk about magic in campaign settings. Now, when it comes to discussing magic in a campaign setting that you're building, most people like to fall back onto what is the level of magic in your setting, meaning how often does an average person find a magic item or see spells being cast? Well, there's a bit more things to consider than that if you want to have a fully fledged magic representation in your world. First and foremost, you want to consider how that magic is composed. Is it a force of nature, or is it the will of a person or the imagination of a person made real? Now, those may sound like semantics, but not really. Think about this. Let's take a bad guy who's trying to cast a big Armageddon spell in your world. Well, what is involved to do that? If you have a force of nature, perhaps what it takes to create that big Armageddon spell is they have to hold this large ritual or find some artifact capable of tapping a vast amount of energy from the ethereal plane or whatever energy source that all of that magic comes from the world, and so that they can unleash it and destroy the material world. Whereas in the other way of looking at it, where magic is will made reality, all you really need is someone to be evil, twisted enough, or just determined and studied enough in order to make their hate and their dreams of destruction real and to bring it out. So you have someone who's single-minded enough to make it happen versus someone who needs to do this vast ritual or find this artifact to do it. It creates a difference in how spells are created and how magic users treat magic as a whole. If in traditional Dungeons & Dragons setting, it leans more towards a tappable energy, where if you're a divine caster, magic comes from the gods, and you just draw power from them. Or if you're an arcane user, you draw it from the world around you. Whereas in, say, mage in World of Darkness, you're making your will real. And that makes for a real difference in how that magic comes about. As for which to choose, it depends on which sounds more appealing to you. The will made real, I find to be rather interesting because it means that the spell users are very set apart from them. They're very willful people. They are willful enough to make their imagination, their will, their dreams real. Versus being able to tap into the energy of the world, that also creates a dichotomy where magic is latent everywhere. Magic seeps into the world itself. Even the average people have magic in them, or at least live with magic all around them. They just don't see it or don't know how to tap into it. And you can see that there's different ideas there. You don't necessarily, in one world, you can be a studious mage and be a terrible mage. You cast things and you never cast the right thing. Or you could be in another world where, in order to even be able to cast a spell, you have to be incredibly willful. You have to be in complete control of yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to blow yourself up. Now, next, you want to consider what variety of magic there is. Once you have an idea of how magic is composed, you want to look into what flavors that magic comes in. Well, what do I mean by that? Are there schools of magic? Is there schools of illusion, conjuration, divination, arithmancy. Pretty much, are there different styles of doing magic, different ways to use it? Or are there maybe colors of magic where there's not just one type of energy in the world, but there's maybe 5 or 7 types of energy? And if you tap into the blue magical spectrum, you're able to copy the abilities of beasts. Or if you tap into the white magical spectrum, you're able to heal people. You tap into the red magical spectrum, you're able to cast fire magic and create heat or things like that. Or is there good and evil magic? You know, I mentioned white magic. Is there white and black magic? Is white magic aligned with good people and black magic aligned with bad people? Or not? There's also a way that magic can only be limited by the imagination. If you have a will-based magic, I don't want to call it a system, but if the magic in your world is based on one's will, magical spells could be based only upon their imagination and their ability to make it real, versus tapping into a certain type of spectrum in order to cast a certain type of spell. One stage informs the next. You want to think about that. I mean, you can do different variations. You can do different schools of magic. You can do good and bad magic. Or you can do just simply unlimited magic, where it's based upon the imagination of the player or the spell user. Next, a very important thing that a lot of people miss when they're considering their magic is, what is the price of using magic? Now, by that, I literally mean, what does the player or the spell user have to give up in order to cast that spell? In the same way that some people in our world can spit fire. How can they do that? What is the cost of doing that? Well, for one, their time, because they have to learn and get good at it. 2, possibly their health. They may sometimes burn themselves, or their bodies may have to get used to being on spit. Maybe they develop calluses inside and they're not able to taste other things. What do they have to give up in order to earn that? Magic is no different. If you've ever watched Full Metal Alchemist and heard them talk about equivalent exchange, that's a good thought to have when you're talking about magic. If you want to cast that big Armageddon spell in either of the types of compositions, what does that cost? I mean, other than the world being destroyed, what does that cost to the spell user? In the one where they have to find this artifact and have this big ritual, well, what's in cost there? Well, maybe they have to have a sacrifice. Maybe they have to make a sacrifice in order to release the amount of energy that is stored in their body. Or maybe, okay, there we go. Spell is a force of nature, and magic is in every living thing in the world. And we need to unleash a lot of magic at once in order to get our big Armageddon spell. So how do we do that? We sacrifice a city's worth of people all at once, so that all of their magical energy is sent out into the air, and then maybe we use that artifact and the ritual to siphon that energy into one point and unleash it on the world in a focused, beam or something. Now this is starting to come together like an actual, villain's concept here. Or maybe on the sake of the will-based magic, how, for that will-based one, he wants to bring out his dreams of destruction into the world. What will that cost him? Well, maybe in order to remind himself of that, it takes immense pain for him to get into that state. So he has to be in this state of mind where he's just tortured. So maybe he has to have his minions physically whip him and get him to this tortured state. And then he has to do something to himself so horrendous, so grotesque, that his mind can just seep back into that place to misanthropy. And he has to, pick out his eye in order to feel the pain. Maybe he has to have his servants, he has to let himself care about someone and have his servants ravage that person, just so he can reach that point of hatred and disgust, and then bring that out and make it real and taint the world. what does the magic user have to give up to make that magic happen? That is very important. Nothing in this world is free. No energy is ever created or destroyed, and magic should be no different. There should be some cost, whether the person has to simply become fatigued by how many magical spells they cast in a day, or if they have to give up a sacrifice, such as some of their own blood to cast it, or who knows, maybe you're doing a really creative setting where someone literally has to pay money to cast spells. Like there is a god of magic, and you literally have to give tribute whenever you want to cast a spell. And when you cast your spell, the money is gone. Or I guess that could be a magical council or something, or a trickster god, I don't know. But that's something creative, and you want to have that thought up ahead of time. There should be a cost for your spells, otherwise it stops being something special. And when it comes to magic, that's what it is. Players who want to play magical characters want to be special. They want to be able to cast magic because not everybody can. So keep that price in mind. Next, prevalence. I talked about this in the beginning when we were talking about the level of magic. Well, there's a few different ways to do this. A lot of players tend to talk about it in terms of, oh, well, there's high magic in my world, or there's low magic in my world. Well, the way I look at it, there's a few different stages, and I have some examples for you. First, there's the non-existent, or almost non-existent. That's our world. Now, why this is important to bring up is if someone in our world saw someone casting legitimate magic, how would they react to that? Well, for one, I can tell you, if it was on video, or even in real life, we wouldn't believe it was real. We would believe it was some trick. Or there was some scientific explanation for it. We would try and logic it away unless there was significant time put into it. If we just saw it one day, like we saw someone shooting fireballs out in the forest, we'd figure, oh, maybe somebody's shooting a movie or something. We might want to go and talk to that person because it'd be amazing, super cool. And if they told us, oh, no, I can actually cast fireballs, so I'm a wizard, you're like, yeah, sure, okay, seriously, how are you doing it? No, really. Okay. No, I'm telling you, I went to school, I did magic. All right, crazy guy, okay. That's really cool and all, but right. In a world where magic is nearly or actually non-existent, when magic happens, it is met with disbelief and wariness, if not all-out fear, if taken to a certain point. Look at the Salem witch trials. Now, there was some political stuff there, but if you look at, say, how it's portrayed in The Crucible, there you can see that the fear of magic just brought about all sorts of problems, brought about paranoia and mass hysteria. And that comes from the fear of magic's effect on a world where magic doesn't exist. Similarly, when you go into a level where magic is rare, this is like the Conan or the Cthulhu Mythos worlds. Now, granted, I will point out, in both of those worlds, magic exists, and it is prevalent to those who dwell in those realms. But keep in mind, the people that we follow in those worlds end up dealing with the magic. The entire point of the characters is when they come across magic, they're the type of person that'll deal with it. The average person in that setting will never see magic, or on the very rare occasion they do, they incredibly distrust it. Like in Conan, magic users are typically thought of as demonic people or evil in general, just because they're dealing with the unnatural. In the Cthulhu stuff, when you come across magic, you're dealing with people who have delved into the occult, who have seen some of the horrible things in the world, and are teetering on the balance of being consumed by that insanity, that overnaturalness, that the things beyond what the normal person can see. In this sort of setting, magic exists, and when somebody comes across it, similar to the non-existent, it's met with fear, but it is more palpable. You will there are realms of it. In real life, and where it's non-existent, you come across people who deal in the occult, it'll be met with disbelief. In these worlds, it's like that, but there's a little bit more palpable power to it. It's a shade, but it's a level up. From there, you go into magic being uncommon. This is where the average person is not ignorant or don't disbelieve magic. They know that magic exists, but they don't see it every day. They would treat it like, and I heard this described pretty well over on A Fistful of Dice. He described it as finding a magic user is like meeting a celebrity. You don't meet a celebrity every day. You may bump into Adam West on a crowded convention floor and kind of brush him off like he's some other person, and then you'll stop and turn around and like, was that Adam West? True story, by the way. But it's the same way with like a magic user in this sort of world. You'll be some farmer walking home from the market, and you see someone cast a glamour on someone else, and all of a sudden, oh, I don't know, their clothing changes, and they'll be walking by like, that was magic. Oh, that was magic. Oh, I can't wait to tell the guys about this. I saw a spell cast. Or alternatively, because magic's still rare in this world, that was magic. That guy's a wizard. I better go tell the town guard just in case. Okay. I've heard bad things about some magic cat. I heard of an evil wizard over there. I don't know about this guy. So you run in the same sort of situation where magic can be a marvel or it could be feared. But either way, people don't normally see it. And this is kind of the magic. This is kind of what most Dungeons & Dragons settings have, or at least a great deal of the more modern ones. This is certainly the setting that, for example, in my new 5th edition book, that they recommend having in your world, where people have heard of and might even see magical creatures or see wizards, but it's more rare. It's if you see one, it's a big deal for you because for an average person because you don't normally see them. Next, you have the point where magic has become common in your world, where magic is on the street. There is a certain percentage of every population that is magical. Even the smallest of villages off in the middle of nowhere has a hedge witch to go to whenever you need medicine or something. In larger cities, there will be honest-to-goodness magic shops where you can go and get magical herbs, get potions, or get small artifacts like wands to do different sort of effects. This is kind of like, and I take a lot from this show, from the anime Fairy Tail, where magic pervades it's very common, and you can go to honest goodness magic shops and buy magical items and things. There are guilds of magic users. You would rarely see that in one of the lower levels, definitely not in the non-existent level. I mean, you might see a college in a lower level where that is like the only college in the world. Hell, that college might not even be on the material plane, it's so rare. But in this world where magic is common and the everyday citizen sees magic and like, oh, that's just magic, you'll see like different groups of wizards and magicians. You'll see wizarding guilds. You'll see many colleges of magic where it becomes a viable career choice for a studious child to start studying magic in school, something that would be unheard of in the lower levels. In this sort of setting, magic is rarely seen as a fearful thing. It's seen as a mundane thing. And I'll touch a little bit on that later. But at this level, magic is common, and it's definitely not seen as something special. There might be special spells out there, but magic in and of itself is not inherently special because it's everywhere. Now, this is normally where most players stop when they think of level of magic. But there's actually a level beyond this that I've seen in a couple of cases that I call an advanced level of magic. This is where magic is so pervasive in life that it pretty much permeates in everything, and it has advanced the average person into a lifestyle that is akin to, say, a sci-fi setting. In this setting, magic is so well studied, so well utilized, so prevalent in everything that you do, that you live in a world that's almost indistinguishable from Star Wars. You have flying ships. You travel to other worlds. You have automatons working for you, or maybe glamours. This is your Final Fantasy XII, or your Dreamtime trilogy from Stan Nichols. In both of these settings, magic has reached a point where the world around them has turned into a sci-fi setting. There are giant metal airships out there the size of freaking cities that are held aloft by magic. They have weapons that are fueled by magic. They have automatons or creatures that are created by and fueled by and use magic. In the Dreamtime trilogy, you have children walking down the street with a glamour of a nanny, or you have people with glamoured pets, where in either case they're not actually real. It's just a spell that acts like that thing, and it's so prevalent. The street lights run on magic. Everything runs on magic. It's there, and it has increased the lifestyle for the average citizen to above what we have nowadays with technology. Magic is like the substitute for technology in this advanced magical setting. And that is like a level beyond. Now, as I said, just like it's important to pick the composition of magic in your world, it's important to pick your prevalence level of magic in your world, because it's going to dictate how people react to magic in your world. Certainly in the advanced version, somebody who sees a magical spell is going to think of it kind of like we think on the terms of seeing a neat new computer. Oh man, that's super neat, and I even understand this, that, and this aspect about it. I don't understand how it was made or anything, and I trust that some super smart person somewhere knows what they're talking about. But man, that sure is neat. Whereas if you're in the rare or non-existent level and you see that magic, you're like, you are either fearful of it or completely disbelieving of it. It dictates how magic is treated in your world by everyone, ideally by your characters, but also by just the world itself, how it treats magic. Lastly, now I've talked about this a little bit, that's the reputation of the magic. Essentially, you want to think on the prevalence level and how most people think of magic. Is magic or the seeing of magic feared? Is it disbelieved? Is it embraced? This will likely be dictated by your level of magic, but it's something to consider and may differ from region to region in your world. Lastly, my actual bit of advice, beyond just, thinking about these and kind of taking notes on them as you go through making your decisions on how magic will be treated in your world, is the thing I want you to remember, Game Masters, is that when players decide to make a spellcaster, it's because they want to be special. They want to do something special that other people can. So even if your setting has magic at an advanced level, remember that a person who's going to play a spellcaster in that setting is special. They are beyond what an average person can do. So even in an advanced magical setting where in every home there might be a wand of fireball in order to defend the home from any intruders, a spellcaster character is someone who not only can go out and get one of these, but can go out, get one of these, and maybe mod it to be able to turn that fireball into a fire tornado. They are the person that made that special, neat magic computer we were talking about earlier. They are the ones that can create the magical marvels. They are on the level above the norm. Same way in the lower levels, where they are that unique person that does actually do that. The 1 in a billion person that actually does magic in the non-existent magical world. Or the one person who has actually studied the occult enough to learn to tap into the overnaturalness of the real world. No matter what level you choose and what composition you choose, your spellcasters are special. They are the ones that actually put in the time and pay the price to get to create magical marvels. And that's the main thing I want you to keep in mind when you're going through and thinking this through, is how magic exists for the world, for the average person, and for your player characters, and for your spellcasters. What makes your player a spell user or a magic user versus a magic consumer? But maybe there were more levels of magic, or more types of magical composition that I didn't mention here. If you could think of something that you wanted to add, or something that you disagreed with, please feel free to leave a comment below, and please like, share, and subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.